That time again. Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Next Gen Live. I'm Rory Sauter. Joining me is Brian Perez. We have Bill Muckler, Greg Merck. We'll have a few more joining us shortly. Big show tonight. A lot to address, a lot to establish. What a week it's been in the media. We were last live doing this show a week ago today. Guys, what a time to be alive. I want to go to Bill Muckler first. Your thoughts on everything? What are you directing your focus towards? Give us the latest. Bill. I know you're doing your show every day. Keep up the great work. You're touching on a lot of pivotal, important points and good stuff.
Speaking of my show today, it may be my last one. I may never be on again.
Why?
I touched the subject that nobody wants to touch, that I'm really concerned that it may be the one that defeats Trump in November, and that's reproductive rights. Because I don't believe there's such a thing as pro-choice. You're either for life or you're for abortion. So you're pro-life or you're pro-abortion. And I went full out, both barrels, on this whole abortion scam, billion-dollar money-making scam. I went all the way back to when it first started back in the early 1900s by Margaret Sanger, called the Negro Project, which became, went under several more names, pardon me, and finally became Planned Parenthood. So I'm not going to continue on this forever, but I wanted to have a show about it because I keep hearing from the Marxist media that they keep talking about reproductive rights and climate change, DEI. Those are the three big ones that the Democrats are convinced they're going to defeat Trump on. And I got to tell you, they can fool a lot of people. I could see more than half of the people voting on the issue of reproductive rights because the Republicans never bring this out and never talk about it and never tell what it's all about. They're afraid to touch this subject, and that's why I went and did a whole show on it today. I did some quotes from a black doctor who was very instrumental in debunking this way back in the 1920s. Talked about how this is very similar to what the Marxists were doing. Anyway, enough on that. I think I'm probably preaching to the choir. I hope, Rory, I'm still with you tomorrow and next week, because I don't know. The powers that be in social media are not very friendly with people who criticize pro-abortion.
Hey, Bill, I was going to say, I'm still alive. I actually got kicked out of Tallahassee speaking when we had the heartbeat bill 2 years ago come aboard. And I actually got kicked out for quoting Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, because there's a lot of Marxist communist state reps saying that we had to sit there and listen to them for about 3 or 4 hours talk about how we're racist because we won't allow them to have abortions. And so finally, when we're allowed to speak, we get 30 seconds. And in my about 15, 20 seconds in, I was quoting Margaret Sanger, who is the founder of Planned Parenthood, who actually gets taxpayer-funded money.
Right.
And quoted she wanted to eradicate the Negro population, and I got kicked out and escorted out by Capitol Police.
Well, see, here's what I'm concerned about. I think that's how Biden won 2020, although they don't really talk about that so much. But remember, the red wave that we're going to experience, we're going to wipe everybody out. It's going to be a red wave. And what happened? We got we
got a little trickle
party in the House, and an even count in the Senate. And the main issue that people voted on, that the left Marxists voted on, was reproductive rights. In other words, pro-abortion.
Well, it's a heart issue. It's a God issue. It's about, if you're willing to take out life, you got a real heart issue inside, because it's an evil Marxist, demonic. It's about organ harvesting. It's about just a real demonic, and it's about just taking out the fathers of the homes and destroying the American family cornerstone. The principles of father, mother, children. It's a Marxist, evil, demonic thing, and we live in the devil's world here on earth. So, yeah.
Let me read this quote to you and see what you think about it. This is a quote from Dr. Mildred Johnson, who's the founder of National Right to Life. This is back in the 1920s. She wrote, quote, "Today it is the unborn child. Tomorrow it is likely to be the elderly or those who are incurably ill. Who knows, but a little later it may be anyone who has political or moral views that do not fit into the distorted new order. To that question, am I my brother's keeper? I answer yes. It is everyone's responsibility to safeguard and preserve life. A child is a member of the human family and deserves care and concern." Dr. Mildred Johnson. So I use that as kind of the foundation of what I talked about today. Boy, does that sound familiar? She could have wrote that in the 2020s, not the 1920s, and been right on. Don't you guys think?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting, civilization, to say the least. I mean, I can't even.
That's very nice of you to nicely put, Roy. Like you're very nice about it.
The society has made that claim even all the way through to the 60s, that the elderly were next, and we're already there.
Yeah.
We're already pushing euthanizing the elderly, and listen, when the government is spending trillions of dollars more than it's taking in, the healthcare system is simply unsustainable in and of itself, now compounded with this massive influx of 10 million illegals stressing the system, breaking and destroying the system. It's only a matter of time before Hillary Clinton's dream will be reinventing quality of or redefining quality of life healthcare. That was her solution to when the cost of healthcare rose above the rise in the budget. She said we would have to redefine quality of health. That's what's coming. Maybe you're 90 years old, you're not going to get that heart operation. You're not going to get that joint replacement. All these things that we've come to expect because we have insurance and we pay for it are going to go away. And they're going to feed us the lie that just like the left, you're going to own nothing and like it. They're going to feed us the lie that your life will be better in your family's life. And they're going to make these people feel like I don't want to be a burden to my family and just kind of go away. Like that old movie that came out in the 70s. What was it?
Soylent Green?
No, it was not 2001. I can't believe it. I don't remember the name of it. Well, when you reach a certain age, they put you in some chamber and they shot.
The title of it was Soylent Green with Charlton Heston and Edward G. Robinson.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it may not be so drastic, but pretty much it is. I mean, they'll put you on some morphine drips. They'll make you comfortable, and you'll just kind of drift off into oblivion, and you won't burden your families. It's all coming. But I'll tell you, I'm getting to the point where when I look at these wackos and pushing their abortion, I almost like, have your abortions. Because if you're such a foul, disgusting wretch that you're going to kill your baby, I don't want you having babies. So kill all your babies. Ultimately, all of the homosexuals, the sodomites, and the wacko Karens that want to kill their babies, eventually there'll be no more radical left Democrats. They will have killed all their babies. There'll be no future, or they'll all be having, men having sex with men, can't have babies. So they won't procreate. They'll either kill their babies or they won't be able to have babies. So, they're kind of pushing me to that point where, go have your abortions, go kill your babies. I hope you never produce anyway.
But how come we can't abort them? They're for babies being aborted after birth. Why can't we just abort them and keep the babies? And
yeah, well, I mean, look, it's like you play the long game. These people will be less of them. If they want to keep aborting their babies, well, there'll be less of them. So you know what? You're going to have it.
or they'll cut
have it.
Or they'll cut their kid's dick off and tell them they're a girl.
Yeah, I mean, homosexuals, they can't procreate. Abortion-loving skanks, they can't procreate. They murder their babies in the womb. So, so we'll just see the slow down the growth of the radical leftist progressive.
And you know what's good about the ones that are for abortion? Most of them are real ugly, nasty-looking women that you wouldn't even want to procreate with. So it's like,
right? No, absolutely. And here's another thing, and I've been saying that for a long time, Brian. Like the type of females that believe in that shit so strongly, the ones that like their lives depend on it.
Yeah.
They think that's more important than the economy. These are some of the most horrific, some of the most horrendous, disgusting, sloppy animals you could ever lay your eyes on.
It's the holy grail of the left. I mean, I don't care what they talk about in any of their conventions.
Sadly, if we would take a poll right now with women, I guarantee you that would be the number one issue overall.
Oh yeah,
in America.
There's not even you don't even have to take a poll. Just go to any of their events, any Democrat event, any political event. The subject matter that elicits the most thundering applause is abortion rights. I mean, they could talk about, equality. They could talk about racism, clap. They could talk about feeding the poor. But it isn't until they talk about abortion that there's thunderous applause and screaming and cheering. I mean, in every single one of their events, they mention that word abortion and you just see that crowd. So it is the holy grail. It is their number one key issue because they are the party of darkness. They're the party of death. So of course they embrace that.
A new idiotic report, Brian, real quick, and then
Yep, sorry.
Mention what you were going to say, but in regards to this whole scenario, Greg, there was just a study that came out, a new report, and it's absolutely as wacky as you can ever imagine. Apparently, and this is so ludicrous, I can't even believe I'm repeating this, and this is actually in the headlines. But doctors, I forget which hospital, but it's a very high-profile hospital, said that in the future, going forward, parents will be able to tell whether or not their kid is a transgender.
Oh yeah,
in the womb. So how are they going to defend the transgender scenario when we bring up, like we can tell them this. Well, you say you like transgenders, you say you protect them, but look. You have a transgender kid ahead of time and you're going to kill it. Like, how are they going to, you know what I mean? They're going to have to juggle this. They have to think about this moving forward because this is a big thing. They're going to have
That's just nonsense, though. It's just crazy. You can't tell that. That's just the stupidest thing ever.
Absolutely idiotic and through the roof. So, out of
this. But see, the point is not to, it's never going to have to come to, do I abort that child or not abort that child?
No,
I thought you were
think about how they're going to juggle. No, they're going to have to really.
But that's not the. But that's a whole separate thing they don't worry about. The reason why they're doing that.
They say they're the ultimate protectors in support.
No, I know, I get it. But it's never going to have to come to that because what that is about, it's about legitimizing this whole idea that transgenderism is real. It's not because it's never going to have to get to a point, well, you can't abort that baby's transgender. No, because that's never going to happen. Because, I mean, you could tell if a baby's right now is handicapped, if it's Down syndrome, and people are aborting Down syndromes. But there's nobody questioning that the whole point of that is about legitimizing the reality that transgenderism is real, which it is not. It's complete lie. They just want to legitimize it. And, whether or not they have this argument over here about aborting a transgender child, no, they're going after the big game, right? The big
transhumanism, the transhumanism.
Yeah, it's so ludicrous that if this, let's just say for argument's sake, let's just say hypothetically, this was true. It's not, but let's just say it was. If that were, the case, then why weren't they able to detect gay individuals all these years and lesbians?
Hey, Roy, real quick, that was it's Boston Children's Hospital that said that.
Yeah,
Go
that's
ahead.
a big
Sorry.
one. See, very high profile.
Yeah, but that's because they want to support this whole narrative. They want to legitimize it. That it's a real
I'm saying for
thing.
argument's sake, though, I'm just saying if this actually had any legs, if there was any facts here, there's anything to back this up, then we would say, well, if you're saying this, then why couldn't you have predicted all these people being gay before they came out of the womb?
Well, but yeah, but they've already been trying to make that argument too, that there's a gay gene. They just haven't found it yet. Oh, believe me, they've already been trying to address that. This is just more of the legitimizing. There's a gay gene. Look, that they've been talking about that. They've been throwing that, advancing that lie for decades. There's a gay gene. We just haven't found it yet. So look, we're way past that. Now we're into the crazy, bizarre transgenderism. Yeah, there's a transgender gene too. So look, it's all there. It's already been. Look, they're never going to be able to do those things you're talking about, but they've already been talking about the gay thing, just exactly like right now they're talking about the transgender thing. There's a gay gene out there. Well, okay, no, there's not. But it's not about, again, it's not about the science. It's not about it is about forced compliance, forced participation. It's about fundamental change. It's all part of the progressive narrative. And this is just feeding it. It's just kind of feeding more of the lies. Truth, when truth is supplanted by imagination, you get chaos. And that's exactly what the devil's sowing. And it's the Marxist satanic way.
Well, it's about transhumanism as well. It's the lizard people. Even in the Bible, it talks about like there's different type, like a reptilian type of, and they want to make it. Yeah, it's a demonic. I wish I could put my.
Look, it's humans. We're humans. We're not. There's humans. There's not humans. This is a big fat lie that somehow there's a genetic component about sexual orientation and identity. It's just a patent lie, and it's designed to allow people to pursue the evil proclivities of their empty, dark hearts without fear of reprisal or judgment from society. So I want to be able to do what I want, say what I want, live like I want, and I want to be free from judgment. So then I can say this is not a man choice. This is God's choice. This is how God created me. So, or how nature or Mother Nature, or how we're created. But it's not. It's how I was created. And then you're relieved from all responsibility and accountability. And that's what they're seeking. They want to be able to live the way they want, free of judgment or any kind of condemnation. Certainly, any condemnation that might come from some religious zealots.
Well,
Greg,
they don't really want to live in peace because they try to rub it in our faces. They try to advertise everything about their lifestyle, and they want other people to.
Yeah, but that's not because they don't want to live in peace. That's because these are self-loathing, confrontational people anyway. If you ever met some of them, I mean, they just want to put it in your face. It's almost like they're looking for trouble. They want to ride. They want people. You know, the other day I was in the gym, and there's some guy big black guy working out in the gym, Muslim guy, has the Muslim cap. And then he puts on like the burqa mask that the women wear where you can only see the eyes. And I'm like, what is this guy's point? He's walking around here. He's got this big cane. I'm like, this guy's just asking for somebody to say, hey, man, what's your problem? He's looking for trouble. And that's what these people do. They just bait you, and they just wait for somebody to say something to them. And then they can scream bloody murder. Oh, you're a racist, homophobe, anti-Muslim, xenophobe, whatever. So, that's why you see that community out there acting so ridiculous and so in your face, because they want you to confront them so that they can, because, they got 99% of the media that's going to stand behind them. I mean, look what they did to that kid from the Catholic school with the Indian guy who gets in his face. And, and then they ended up condemning him. Of course, he made out in the end. He's a millionaire now, so good for him.
Anyway, Rory, my point is, when will the Republicans ever come up with a coherent, compelling argument to fight and counter this whole abortion rights, reproductive rights argument that that the Marxists are using against us?
No, they have no balls, Bill.
Well, as soon as they come up with a solution to cutting the government to balancing the budget, they'll come up with that as soon as they come up with a balanced budget.
Right. And this
all goes. Most of you guys are saying never.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Here's what I see. I notice similarities with Republicans regarding not wanting a real long-term solution. The border, they continue to make lousy deals and not really get the job done in that area. And with this abortion thing, they let it prolong, they let it drag, they never really do anything about it.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, Washington doesn't have to do anything. The Supreme Court did it. Now it's up to the states.
Well, I mean, think about it. Every election cycle, candidates still talk about this. It's one of the biggest topics, so it's not going away in terms of, this whole matter. I mean,
well, as I say, it's a simple thing. Like the Constitution is limited government. All right. And now it's the states. You need to talk to your state reps about that and your state senators. This is a state's issue. It's a states' rights issue. It was never a federal government constitutional issue. Anybody that knows the Constitution now, I can say, look, I believe that life begins at conception. Sadly, unfortunately, this is not for the federal government. This was not how the framers saw the federal government and with these kind of dictates. And the Supreme Court rightly put it back on the states. So you need to go to all the states and have this argument with them. But in Washington, D.C., we're about the business of what the Constitution says we should be involved in, and none of that is part of it.
Speaking of the Supreme Court, they just ruled against us on our evasion of putting barbed wire to secure our border, 5-4.
We were talking about that yesterday. That's a big thing. That's really horrible for our country. I mean, and look at what Barrett decided to do. I mean, She sided with Roberts. Trump picked this woman. This woman was supposed to be the ultimate conservative. And lately, these last few years, she's let us down numerous times on numerous policies.
Well, one thing that they didn't
same with Crybaby Kavanaugh. I mean, I do respect him and I appreciate him being on our side for some things, but there's other things where he stabbed us in the back and really screwed us on in the last couple of years. So, and another one that was supposed to be the ultimate conservative, appointed by Trump. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to make of this. Are these people compromised? Do they just get lots of money to make certain rulings? I don't know. I don't know what to make of. I mean, you would think they would just have common sense, like somebody like Barrett, if she's, the person that she said she was initially, when she was getting vetted, this should be a no-brainer. You protect your country, you protect your homeland.
Well, I didn't read the whole judgment and review, but I did read some snippets of it, and it doesn't take away Texas's right to defend their border. It doesn't do that.
I mean, I understand that, Greg, but that doesn't. That's beside the point in a way. I mean, she still did make this ruling. She still decided to side with, the liberals and what the Democrats want. I mean, that's problematic. That's troubling, concerning.
Yeah. Well, 10 million people are in our country. I don't care. Supreme Court or no Supreme Court, it's not going to end until we get a new president.
You just made an even better reason why it really makes no sense. I mean, what's her?
Well, I'm saying it has no impact. Her view, that view, it has really zero impact on what's happening and what was going to happen. Razor wire, no razor, can they put it up? Can they not? Zero impact on the illegals that are coming into this country. It has. That's like, you're stepping over, $1 million bills to pick up pennies. It's going to be a long time before you make up that $1 million bill that you just stepped over. We got people now coming on boats, literally charging the beaches and jumping off the boats and running into the country and disappearing. I mean, razor wire. It was a horrible decision and it was a terrible one. But we got such a massive, massive problem, and the border is it's not being addressed because we have an agenda, an administration that is hell bent on completely transforming what our country looks like. And wire or no wire is going to have zero impact on the grotesque ugliness that's at our southern border.
Right, Bill.
One thing I've noticed that all of a sudden they picked up what I called them invaders like 5 or 6 years ago. Now you hear Abbott talking about an invasion, Ted Cruz talking about invasion. So at least we're getting to that point where now we're starting to call it what it is. Mm-hmm. But the way it's happening, it's unbelievable. And when we say there's 10 million illegals,
more than that,
invaders in the country, that's only the ones that came in the last 3 years. How about the ones that came in the last 10 and 20 years? That's 10 to 20 million of them. There's somewhere around 50 million foreign nationals in this country, of which only 10 million of them are in the 10-step naturalization process. The rest of them are illegal.
Yeah. So 50 million what percent would that make up of the country? Because when they do the
Well, I mean, 340 million. It's almost a fifth.
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
Almost a fifth of the people. So I think legally we have legally 290, 300 million.
Think about that for a second. Almost a fifth of the people. Think about that for a second. I mean, that is mind blowing.
Well, yeah, it's changing our nation. It's changing the way vote. Like, it's for voting. It's to keep them in power.
Well, that's the low hanging fruit. That's only the half of it. The bigger part of it is what I've always said is it's global homogenization of the people and a massive expansion of the federal government. That really is the most nefarious, dark part of this movement. It's not only going to keep them in power, obviously, it's to create a permanent Democrat Party and possibly be voted out of office, but it's creating the expansion of the federal government that will further enslave the people and get more people on the dole. That really is the danger, the long-term danger of America. Because you know what? If you get some illegals here that become citizens, maybe, 50-50 chance, maybe that they realize when they start, hey, maybe government, I don't like government taking, I don't like taxation, I don't like Democrat Party, because a lot of these people from the Hispanic areas, I mean, they're kind of Catholic based. They don't like this, kill a baby 9 months in one day afterward. So you got a shot at maybe capturing a vote, but you don't have any shot when we're going to have the next 20 decades with multi-trillion-dollar deficits that are part and parcel to funding this massive illegal migration. That's permanent damage and destruction to America as we know it. So yeah, the vote's bad, absolutely, but I think what is worse is the massive expansion of the federal government that this is causing.
Yeah, and then all the terrorists that are coming over. There's a lot of terror cells here. I think a lot of things are going to happen, like we've all been talking about repeatedly over and over, that a lot of stuff's going to happen this year. Definitely terrorist attacks are going to happen. It's about fear-mongering the people, keep them scared, keep power and control over them, and to lead to maybe martial law to keep this administration and this regime in power.
Yeah, and I don't know if we get there, the whole martial law thing. I don't not saying rule it out, but you don't need that to keep Biden in power. They already proved they didn't need martial law. Yeah, they didn't need martial law last time. Look, they can go harvest a bunch of ballots. Now, can they go in these areas where you got thousands and thousands of illegals and, hey, sign here, fill this vote out? I mean, we're already not verifying signatures and verifying that people. It's just, so who knows how many votes they can harvest in there. But I'll tell you, expect this thing to accelerate. 5,000 a day, 10,000 a day. How about 20,000 a day? This is an election year. And, every poll that comes out, Trump is kind of inching a little bit more. Last one I saw, he's 6 points ahead of Biden, 7, 8. They're realizing their time could be up. They're looking at a new president. So they're going to be flooding the border to try to get in before it closes.
And then they got to traffic the children. We are the largest consumer of human trafficking, $125 billion a year. So it's about that as well. And it's just sickness and evil stuff that is happening, and nobody's doing anything about it. Our Republican Party, who say, we got to tie border security to the new CR, but they don't do that either. Like, these guys are just a bunch of ballless, spineless cowards, and they should all be removed. They should all be actually in prison because they're allowing an invasion into our own republic.
Well, yeah, that's been a problem for a long time, but that's why you're not going to change Washington. Sorry, never going to happen. You got to change your own backyard. And until that happens, you're just blowing in the wind.
Sheriffs aren't doing anything about it here in Florida, at least the ones in my county surrounding areas. They're allowing it all to happen. They even know about it. And they just, well.
Yeah. A lot of it's naivete. A lot of it's ignorance. A lot of it's lack of courage. These people are they're hooked. They buy into the narrative, and they don't know how to cut through the facade to look past the fancy wrapping paper of all these issues. Take that DeWine, that Ohio governor. Woman and mother tells him the kid was going to kill herself. So he doesn't realize that this is a movement that is not about people living peacefully and having acceptance. It's about fundamentally changing society. It's chaotic. It's destructive. And it really is dangerous. So as long as you're thinking about the wrapping paper and thinking it's really pretty, you ignore the tired old broken regift that's inside.
Just wait till the dollar collapses too. With all these illegal immigrants here, chaos is going to be, it's going to be nuts.
And we always talk about how one of the main objectives and goals of these higher ups is to decrease the population.
Yeah.
And, have population control. When you have more and more transgenders, that's going to really make them happy, the people at the top, because that's going to mean less and less kids, less and less reproduction.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly means that.
Because think about it, Greg, this is a trend. It keeps growing. It keeps evolving. It keeps getting bigger and bigger. Think about how big it's going to be in 5 years. Dangerous, very dangerous.
Yeah, but I don't think that's a threat to population.
It's not slowing down, man.
I don't think it's a threat to population, and how they want to depopulate is simply by destroying your freedom and your liberties. The abortion is a huge part of it, and birth control, huge part of it. That's why they push the birth control and the abortion in countries like Africa, to no end. They're going to these, just like, they're no different than the days of Margaret Sanger, and she wanted to target people who, had birth defects and who were black. And they're doing that still today. And they're going to the countries and pushing birth control. So I don't think they're pushing the transgender thing per se. Right. That's all part of this kind of demonic movement. Right. And the result will, of course, be, they're not going to procreate, I suppose, but that's a whole nother issue. The radical LGBTQ thing is a whole another movement about, it's like a multi-front war against the enemy. It's not just one attack on one front, it's multi-fronts. And ultimately the goal is to break the enemy down. And to them, we are the enemy. The free market capitalist, God-loving America is the enemy.
It's about taking God out of it's about destroying what God's creation and his principles and what we are all founded on. It's a demonic, that's why we're in a spiritual war. Yeah. It's all about destroying.
Greg, you brought up Margaret Sanger and Planned Parenthood. What would it look like if the black community didn't have these record number of abortions?
They'd be almost 40% of the population.
Yeah.
Right. And what would the crime rate look like?
There's a lot of ifs in there, if they didn't succumb to that, well, if the families look at
right now in the black community, they make up about 12% of the population. And according to the FBI statistics, the crime is almost 60%.
But that's also because they've been attacked since day one. It's about taking the father out of the black home as well. True. So if they actually had maybe not attacked and are given the same opportunities, instead of following the democratic Marxist movement, we might not have to actually even have that talk, because they would, considering, we have legal immigrants coming here, they commit 100% of the crimes because they already came here illegally.
Right. In the old days, the black community voted mostly Republican, and then
very strong.
LBJ came into place and created the Great Society, and then everything went south with the black community, and we all know how badly things have turned out, and it's, in a lot of ways, it's gotten worse.
Oh yeah, 100%. If they actually looked at the black population, actually looked at the Democratic Party, they're the founders of the KKK. They had slavery.
Everything.
Yeah, and they're actually continuing the slavery process today. Like, we have slavery even way more than we had.
In a subtle way. Yeah, mind manipulation, brain control. The way they really. They have people on chains, but not physically. Not
physically, but just mind chains,
like
in the
psychology.
mind.
Mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
And that's when Kanye West talks about getting off the plantation. He always says, get off that mindset. Actually use your brain, use intel, do your own research, because if you really do, you would see that they are holding the black population down. Like Margaret. Look at Margaret Sanger. She's, yeah, we can talk about her all day.
You're talking about a society that wouldn't recognize a picture of George W. Bush if he showed it to them, but would know who Madonna was and who Taylor Swift is. You're talking about people who have kept themselves in ignorance. And I'm talking about abject ignorance. And of course, we know that the Democrat Party is the party of racism, the party of KKK, the party of segregation. None of it matters because they don't listen. They don't listen to the truth. And even when the truth is presented to them, all it does is give them more reason to distort it and to argue back. As the old philosopher said, to give the truth to him who loves it not is but to give more multiplied reason for misinterpretation. They don't want to hear it. They don't care. And they got 90% of the media telling them the exact opposite, because it isn't about the party of racism, the party of equality. It's about fundamental change, because what Republicans are proposing is not massive redistribution of wealth. And the elites in this country, and certainly the Davos dimwits and the global elites, they're about redistribution of wealth, lying to you and saying this is about equality and acceptance, when the fact is it's really about redistribution of wealth and controlling the masses. And the two are interchangeable. Control the money, control the masses, control the masses, control the money. And this is exactly what these people are about. And I don't care what you talk about, it is always the same thing. They suck you into the argument when you don't see the objective. Electric vehicles, they're sucking you into the argument. Well, is it sustainable? No, it's not sustainable. These cars die in the cold. You cannot charge them. There's a billion reasons why EVs don't work. It's not about the EVs versus the combustion engine. It's about no vehicles. They don't want you to have any vehicle. Why? Because they can't control you. Vehicles are freedom. You can drive and go 1,000 miles in a day if you want. They want you on public transportation where they can watch you with their cameras. They want you on buses where they can control how far you can go and how fast you can get there and watch everything you do. I mean, it's like Orwell's 1984. It's not about combustion versus EV. Which one makes sense? We know it doesn't make sense. They want ultimately no cars. And people better wake up. You know, you want to drive around your Tesla, trust me, your Tesla is going to be gone just like my Hemi engine combustion engine.
Or stuck in the snow like in Chicago where they can't even get charged up.
Bill, you have any thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I guess going back a little bit, what we're talking about is it really is the destruction of the black family, the black nuclear family that happened in the 50s and the 60s was really the precursor of this abortion and Great Society and all this stuff that we're involved in. As far as what Greg was talking about, yeah, if you've ever read Agenda 21, really go to the Google and Google Agenda 2130 and read through that. And there's a lot to read in there. They've put a lot in there, and you'll find out exactly what they're looking for. They want all of us. They want to depopulate us, and those are remaining. They want us living in high-rise apartments,
city centers,
in very condensed urban areas,
15-minute cities.
Yep, 15-minute cities, baby.
Where there's no way that you have any access to transportation, that you would live and work, and you're there controlled, and they can put cameras on you, they can do anything to you, and they can control how your heating, your air conditioning, they can control the food you buy, they can control everything that they want to. And as far as the distribution of wealth Greg was talking about, they don't want to redistribute their wealth. They want to redistribute our wealth.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Of course. You know, and that's why I look at 1%, the top 1%. There's 86% approval of Joe Biden. Top 1% wage earners. 86%. I mean, that just tells you everything you need to know right there. But, I've said this for years, and absolutely the Agenda 21. And I remember when I was speaking before state officials here in the local officials, that the Agenda 21 was here in Pensacola. And just look at your roads. Any of those where you see these asinine bike roads, they were cutting out lanes. So the vehicles are now encumbered with one lane because they could they created a bike lane there. And why is it? People just say, "Oh, nice for the bikes." No, these people have no idea. They are frogs in the boiling pot, and it's 90 degrees, and pretty soon you're not going to be able to move, and you're dead it's going to be boiling. They don't even know they're boiling to death. These roads, these things, all of these trails, the bike trails, the bike paths, cutting down the streets, it's all designed to force to make life miserable for the people that are driving vehicles. And eventually you just go into public transportation, and it just sucks to sit people in to the cities. Hey, I'm going to live in the city because I hate driving and commuting because it takes me an hour and a half. I'm just going to move in. That's exactly what they want.
Yep. And for us Florida guys, welcome to New York, Florida, baby.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, it's like unstoppable, because even in Texas, I mean, look at Texas. Texas is building a community for migrants, for illegals outside of Houston. I mean, so like nobody's immune to this. This is a reality. Nobody is immune to this movement. The only solution as an individual is to get yourself some land out in the middle of nowhere in these flyover states where nobody wants to go, and as much as possible, be off the grid. Have your own, grow your own crops, have a couple of animals, and have some chickens, because they're coming after everybody. And you get to the point where you are just going, just look how helpless people were with the mask mandates, with the lockdowns. You couldn't go in, you couldn't buy your stuff. Look, I go to the VA. You want to go to the VA? Better put your mask on. Well, the mask does nothing, doesn't matter. So what are you going to do? Say, no, I'm not going to wear my mask, go to hell. And then 6 cops jump you and throw you out, and you never go in there. So look, nobody's immune to this.
Yeah, and building cities for illegals is going to be the new thing. That's going to be a common thing. I mean, I see that as like the future. What else are they going to do with them? They have to. I mean, this is the future of their voters.
Eventually they're going to make us take them in.
This is what the Democratic Party needs to still be a contender.
Yeah, Rory, they've run out of sidewalk space for them, so they're going to have to build someplace for them to live.
Yeah.
No, they're going to have to move in with us. They're going to make us take them in.
They're not going to make us. They're going to pay you. But you know what? Life is going to be so miserable and suck for you that you're going to take their Nancy Pelosi crumbs. You're going to be like, man, I need to have $500. So bring that family of 6 in my house. Give me my $500, because people are going to need that money. So they're not going to force that. We're not going to get there. I mean, the idea that they're going to force people to live in your house. Look, if we get there, America's already collapsed. All right, we are way out. We are way before they start doing that. Yeah, they'll pay you.
I'll be dead. But
and that's the thing. I mean, obviously, they can only make so many excuses for so long. These politicians about placing these illegals, meaning like they're putting them in school gymnasiums, they're putting them in classrooms. People are not going to tolerate that on either side for very long.
But they are, Roy.
They really have no other choice but to, like I said, build them their own city or build them their own area, because they can't keep taking up the hotels. They can't keep taking up the YMCAs. It's not going to work. Under
President Trump, it's going to come to a halt. I can tell you that. Whether you like Trump or don't like Trump, I'm confident that under President Trump, this stuff will end immediately.
I mean, here in Florida, Hillsborough County, they shut down like 6 or 7 schools so they can put illegal immigrants in them. It's ridiculous.
And I will say this, the immigration bill that was just agreed upon, but between Lankford and Schumer, Mark, we talked about this yesterday. This is how pathetic and weak the GOP is. Lankford is one of the main dudes in charge of immigration and negotiating and getting us a proper deal. And the best he could come up with is still us getting 35,000 illegals a week.
No, because again,
don't quote
the only thing it's going to stop is when we get a new president and a new Congress.
I want to make sure that's correct.
That's if we get a chance to even vote.
That's 5,000 a day. 5,000 a day.
They're trying to take them. I mean, if we even get a chance to even vote.
Senate immigration deal allows 35,000 illegals at border every single week.
Yeah, it's 5,000 a day is what they're saying. But it's just asinine too, because what happens when it's 6,000 a day? Like, you're not going to do anything about it. What, you're going to throw them back? That's not going to happen. It's just it's pure waste of time and energy and money and paper. Frankly, paper to write that crap on. It's going to do nothing. It's going to do nothing. We have to have a fundamental changing of the guard. And that's what President Trump brings. It's not going, he's going to shut that border down. I'll tell you what, he's going to shut it down.
Don't forget, he did definitely try to do it during his first term, and he was even pushed back by his own party as well.
Yeah, but we didn't have these problems, and we had to remain in Mexico. And so maybe he didn't deport. Maybe he didn't deport the people that he said he was, but you know what? We didn't have these problems. And Joe Biden talks about, I just need the money. I've been saying it for 10 years. He's a lying piece of garbage because the first day of office, he rescinded with executive orders all the things that Donald Trump did to secure the border. He intentionally, overtly opened the border. And I said, you got to give me the money. No, come on now. You're not fooling anybody with that. You erased everything Trump did for the border on day one. And now you're saying the only reason is because you don't have the money. That's just utter lies. But hey, welcome to the Democrat Party.
But the GOP should be doing something about it too. They're in control of the House. They're not
because they're gutless and they're afraid to shut the government down. That's what they should do.
Shut the government down. Same thing. When the only person that did anything was President Trump through executive order. But it's not like they got the actual Congress has to do something and make legislation because executive order can be overturned again in 4 more years when President Trump's done his last term coming up. And then what do we do again? It's just going to be a repeated cycle until we get Congress to actually make an act, make legislation, secure that border, put the wall, put the technology, put our military up there, deem the cartels a terrorist organization, and secure our borders.
I've been talking about that for a long time. Yeah, that whenever we have a president that does something good and signs an order, the next president will just come in and change it. So
that's why you can't legislate through executive action. But that's why Americans need to pursue 2 parallel paths in their life. One is fighting the good fight to preserve American freedom and American exceptionalism, and the other is preparing for America's demise. Because frankly, America's best days are in the rearview mirror. We have too far gone. We're never going to pay off our debt. We're never going to balance a budget. We're never going to close the gap between 2 and 3 trillion.
Mark, you don't think that? I'll continue on.
We're never going to close the gap between a $2 and $3 trillion deficit spending every year. We're not going to pay off the, but we're not going to unwind the balance sheet in the Federal Reserve, which is $8 trillion, and it's just trickling out. It will take 20 years at the pace they're going. We're never going to make the necessary changes to Social Security. We're never going to get a hold on Medicare, already bankrupt. The cost of our debts will be $1 trillion this year. None of these things are going to change. They cannot change because we're at the point where it's just not possible. Statistically, reality-wise, theoretically, it's just not possible. So on the one hand, you fight the good fight, but on the other hand, you prepare for the day of doom because that day of reckoning is coming.
Yeah, well, I'm prepared. I can live off grid, by the way. So if you guys ever need some fruit or vegetables, come on down, Merck and Bill. Rory, you're a little far away, but you're more than welcome.
Bill, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, let me bring up something.
Yeah, that's right. I'm on the panel tonight with all Florida guys.
Yeah, what are you still doing in communism, California, bro?
Californication.
The numbers came out today that
was a great show, by the way.
It was. I was going to say that too.
David Duchovny,
David Duchovny, yep.
Great show. Love that show.
Me too. I did too.
Bill, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. The numbers came out today that the GDP growth was 3.3%. So Biden is in Wisconsin touting Bidenomics, and the Democrats are all saying, "Hey, look how great it is." But when you really look at how they portray this, the smoke and mirrors part of it is the actual GDP growth was around 2% for the private sector and more than 4% for the government sector. So the government sector is growing exponentially, and that is making the GDP, because that's the way they measure it, look like we had a 3.3% GDP growth, which still isn't enough to really sustain the economy. But still in all, it makes it look like the Marxists are really doing a good thing now, but they're really not. And this whole thing, Greg was talking a lot about this before on the national debt, is all this is doing is this heavy growth in government, this expansion of the federal government, which is something I've been on about for the last 30 years, is getting to a point where this 34 trillion national debt, if Biden is elected, it's probably going to exceed $40 trillion. If Trump's in, it'll probably be around 37 trillion because Trump's not going to be able to control it that much better. He'll control it better than Biden will. But the whole idea is when we see these growth numbers and we look at all the numbers like unemployment numbers, we look at the U6 and it's all bullshit. and it's those numbers all manipulated. The COLA number, cost of living allowance, which they call inflation, is all manipulated. They take out the stuff that makes them look bad, and just leaves in the stuff that makes them look good. So we really. Even if we do have people are paying attention, they're seeing all the manipulated statistics instead of really knowing how to get in and sort all this stuff out. And so, they just keep portraying our country in such a false way.
Yeah, Bill, it's crazy too. So many people believe it and eat it up. I get in discussions with people who actually like Biden here in Florida. I'm like, how do you even? I can't. My mind can't even understand how anybody can support Biden or even say he's doing a good job and he's adding jobs. And I'm like, what? Those are jobs that were taken away during the China virus lockdowns and
they were only restored. Yeah.
They're government jobs is the jobs that are added.
Yeah, those two, which are worse for the economy.
Yeah, because we need limited government, not expanded.
Right.
Yeah, that's why the
government taxpayers pay those people. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And the people that like the directors of these departments make even more than the people who are elected. Like here, we have a mosquito control. The director makes $170K a year. We have 2 helicopters that were $8 million apiece, and yet they don't even hardly like. I'm like, why do we even need this? It's a special district too. We shouldn't even have it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, Bill.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what I was talking about on the GDP growth. The government growth is more than 4%, which means we're hiring all these government people. That's where the growth is, and that's what's costing us the money, and consequently, the national debt's going up because the government doesn't create anything. They don't produce anything. They're not productive.
They create chaos.
Draining off of the taxpayers.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And it's been happening for really the better part of more than 30 years.
Yeah. For sure.
The manipulation of the numbers, the U6 number, even the U6 number, which is total unemployed plus the marginally, the part-times, it's a much bigger number. They use the U3 unemployment, and you go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and it defines what they are. But even the U6 number over the year has become a suppressed number. But the U6 is probably more like 6-7%. And that's a little closer to reality, although I do think that it's probably going to be closer to 10%, but that's part of it. Then you look at the
we're not even hiring qualified people though, Merck, either. It's we're talking about just unemployment numbers and which numbers they cherry pick the good numbers that makes it look like it's really low. Other things with inflation numbers, they like the PCE over the CPI, and the PCE uses things which called hedonics, and hedonics is things like like my phone. If this phone is more technologically advanced, it may cost $1,000 more than last year's phone, but you get the technology in it, so it's really not that much more. So they use these ridiculous things like hedonics. Also substitution. They actually use substitution. So 10 years ago, meat was cheap. I was eating filet mignon, but you know what? Then I got down to couldn't eat filet mignon, so I had to buy the sirloin. Now I'm down to buying ground chuck. Well, that should be obviously. I don't have money in my pocket, but no, there's no inflation there because ground chuck, at $3 a pound, it's like there's no inflation because your replacement, you're actually spending less. You used to spend $10 a pound for filet mignon, 10 years ago, which now of course is $30 a pound. But now I'm eating ground chuck. So they allow these substitutions, which manipulate the real cost of living inflation numbers for people, and all of it designed specifically to suppress these numbers, especially given the fact that the government raises all the wages for all Social Security people, for all military people, for federal government. It's all based on the CPI urban data. And the last thing they want to do is give us a real, 12% raise to bankrupt the government more than it already is. So it's just 3.2, 3.4, you get a 3.4%, when we should have got a 10% raise. So
All numbers manipulated. They changed the CPI data, how they computed it in the 90s to reflect a lower number. They also do things like when you look at monetizing the debt, you'd roll over these treasuries and you had a lot of long-term treasuries have lower interest rates. So it doesn't cost that much. Well, then they started, when rates were going down, they started shortening the debt, because the shorter debt is lower. The long term is a higher interest rate. The shorter term debt's lower. So they started rolling it over in short term treasuries. Why? Because the interest rate's lower. The cost of that debt and servicing that debt is lower. So it makes it look like the government is not as broke. But now the chickens are coming home to roost, because now we're constantly rolling over this debt. Every couple of years, trillions of dollars of debt has to be rolled over. And now with 5.25% interest rates, the service on the debt is a massive problem. And again, it's all about manipulation. They started rolling over treasuries in the 90s with short term because it was a low interest rate. Hey, it's cheaper. And now that short term rate is higher actually than the long term rate. So anytime, that's why you need to get rid of the Federal Reserve. It should be abolished immediately. You should allow free markets to set rates for our treasuries if we need to raise money, and not the manipulations of the federal government. And maybe, just maybe, we might pursue a balanced budget if we didn't have the Federal Reserve to bail us out.
Well, the Federal Reserve's broke anyway. That's why they keep printing money. But
no, the Federal Reserve can't be broke. It's just not possible. I mean, if you got a printing machine in your basement, you can't be broke. It's not a banking institution. It's not Bank of America. It's not Sovereign or Signature Bank. It's not a bank that's like, oh, we lent out too much. It's not. It never goes broke. It can't go broke. It makes its own money. And even when it suffers a billion, trillion, quadrillion dollar loss, it doesn't matter, because it just floats it to the next year. And if they make money next year, it just offsets, because all their profits anyway, they don't make money like, oh, let's give everybody a raise. And no, any profit the Federal Reserve makes, it has to go back to the Treasury anyway. It is just an institution about control. Yeah. It's not a profit and loss. Hey, is it going to last? Oh, they might go bankrupt. No, it's none of that. It's just an extension of the federal government and the U.S. Treasury. And it had these grandiose designs, but it is nothing but an extension of the federal government.
And it's all part of the game,
Yeah. The corporation,
barely being able to pay the interest every year. I mean, and then we just keep getting more and more money from them. I mean, it just doesn't end.
Well, they wanted to manipulate the currency in the world, and they can manipulate the economy by manipulating the currency. That's what these people do. I mean, look, there's a great book out there, Jekyll Island. Study it, read the beginning of the Federal Reserve and Jekyll Island there in 1913. Look, this is a cabal of globalist, really evil, controlling men. They were like the original global elites. And it's just, now it's all central bankers around the world.
And JFK was really the only president who said that he was going to eliminate and abolish the Federal Reserve. And we saw him
That's why he got killed.
He also said he was going to go after the CIA, and no president has really talked that hard and tough on the CIA since. Mark, I want to know your thoughts. What do you think our country would have looked like had he been successful in his attempts to abolish the Federal Reserve?
Oh, I mean, I don't even know if I can imagine that. Because there's really two schools of thought, in finance and in leverage. Businesses, it's good for businesses to have some debt. If you start looking at returns, expected returns and all that, and you start getting into the finance guys and all the analyzing do, and debt can be good, but not this kind of debt. So would we have allowed to expand our economy like we did? The fact is, I would rather not have this giant $26 trillion economy when we're in debt $34 trillion. I would rather have a $15 trillion economy when we're in debt, half a trillion would be much better for us in our standard of living. So, maybe we wouldn't be this economic, let's say, leader that we are in the world today. Maybe we wouldn't have such a huge economy without the ability to borrow money. It's like owning a home. If you could borrow a bunch of money, you have a giant home. If I got to pay cash for my house, I have a nice house, be comfortable. It's a hell of a lot better than borrowing and having this big, giant, beautiful home that I can't afford. So we've got this big, giant, beautiful home called the U.S. economy that we can't afford. So a lot of good it does. I'd rather have a smaller home, a smaller economy, but everybody is getting all the bang for their buck, and there's prosperity across from the East Coast to the West Coast. It would be far, far better. I don't think we would have as huge of economy, but we would be so, so, so much better off.
Yeah, for sure. We'd be living the dream. We'd be actually living the American dream.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be slaves to people wouldn't be slaves to their corporate jobs. We'd actually have more time to spend with family and friends and serve God and do what we're intended to be here to do if we didn't have the Federal Reserve, because we'd still be backed by the gold standard.
Right.
And people, I think, would feel better about themselves. There's nothing that works is more dangerous to somebody's psychology, their mental stability, than having a sense of hopelessness and despair. And we've created an economy and a culture where millions and millions of people are hopeless, and all they do is it's just easy to fall on into the government safety nets. And that's the Nancy Pelosi crumbs. That's as good as it's going to get for you. And once you get sucked into that world, you never get out. You never get out. And that's why there's so much hopelessness with people. So I think people would feel better about themselves, because people would be working. They'd be working hard. They would know that they're getting a value for their dollar. I think the American people would be way, way happier. We wouldn't have this division. I mean, we've got the haves and the have-nots, and we've ushered in a whole new era of class warfare like we've never seen before. I just think Americans, we would have a massive middle class, and we'd have a very, very small lower class.
And entrepreneurs, for sure.
Bill, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, Greg mentioned 1913, which was the creation of the Federal Reserve. And the book he was referring to was The Creature from Jekyll Island by W. Griffin, which is required reading for all my family. But in any case, that was the same year the income tax was created,
IRS
Amendment 16, which said, and that was all about the income tax would never exceed 1%, other than the highest amount would be 7% for the ultra wealthy. Well, we saw what that 1% came. But in any case, at that time when the Federal Reserve was created back in 1913, I think our national debt at that time was somewhere around $2.5 million or something like that. It was very small, but $1 had the purchasing power of $1. Now $1 has a purchasing power of about 2 cents.
Right.
Going back, what Greg was talking about back, say, when Kennedy's time, the purchasing power of the dollar would still be at least 50 or 60%, somewhere in that area. So we can see how much it's degraded over the past 60 years or so. And what that's done is it's put a tax on us in the form of our purchasing power has diminished by 20 times over the course of the life of the Federal Reserve. So, yeah, we've got a lot of new shiny toys and a lot of new technology, and a lot of things are better yet. But the amount of our purchasing power is still lagging so far behind, because the more money we make, the higher inflation hikes up to a point where the true inflation right now, if you go back to 1913, is really somewhere around 260%. But because you have to add it on, you just can't say, well, it's 2% this year, it's 2% next year. No, it's 2% plus 2% is 4. Because prices keep adding up. So right now we're paying about we got an inflation of around 260%. But they're not going to tell us that, because if they told us all these things and educated the people and all these things, we'd probably be coming after them with pitchforks.
Right. We're gonna take a quick break. We're not gonna do the full 5 minutes. We'll probably go on break for like a minute or two. So stay with us, everybody. And we are back. Everybody with us?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Still awake, Rory,
All right.
but it's getting late in Florida.
Hey, real quick on inflation, because we're just talking.
Yeah, we got probably about 15 minutes left.
If you look at the inflation graph from 1775, it was like a half of 1% all the way till like the 1900s, 1920s, so World War II. Pretty much. There was a bump for the War 1812. There's a bump of the Civil War. There's a bump of World War One. A little bump, and then after World War II, it started to trickle up. But then when you start getting in the 70s, the gold standard, boom, the hockey stick. It just goes straight up like that. So I mean, for 150 years. We had inflation way at the bottom, just like this. With the only bumps were during times of war, and it wasn't until 1970 that we eviscerated the value of the dollar, and that was really the beginning of the end of the U.S. dollar.
Yeah, good points, Greg. Good analysis.
And Richard Nixon could have definitely avoided this. He could have done things differently. I understand he had many great policies, but this was definitely one of his worst decisions.
Like all government programs, it was just temporary. We're going to go off the gold standard, but it was just going to be temporary. It was supposed to be. It was to suppress the massive demand, because the only people that could get their treasuries in gold were foreign governments, and they were wanting. There was a run on our gold. And it was to stop the run on our gold. So it was supposed to be, and it became, of course, permanent, as all of these idiotic, asinine government things become.
And these foreign countries are buying gold again. They're stocking up on gold, and
yeah. Well,
yeah.
The reality is the dollar stays our number.
Oh yeah, it's got to collapse here soon. I'm wondering when. I figured it'd be. I thought it might happen already, but maybe a couple more months. Who knows? I don't know. It's hanging on by a thread, though.
And we've never experienced that, like the full-on collapse of the dollar.
Nope.
At least not in my lifetime, and I don't think in any of your lifetimes.
Well, we did see a huge, massive correction after the crash in 08. I mean, we were down in a 70 handle.
Not to this extent, though.
Yeah.
This is a whole.
No, of course not, because the world runs on U.S. dollars. Look, it's like if you're the only, if you the only chips in Vegas were the Bellagio, I mean, I don't care how bad Bellagio did. They got the only chips. They're still going to be doing pretty good because everybody wants the chips. So, the United States is like the casino. Everybody's using our dollars in the casinos all over the world, and so we can suffer a lot
from our dollar. Countries are pulling out from it, though, and I feel bad for people who work corporate jobs, because if they were to die, that corporation just replace them quick. So it's like they're just slaving away for something, and that money that they're earning is going to be gone. I hope people are investing properly. And
well, one thing that the dollar has is everybody else is just as bad, maybe worse. So as bad as the dollar is, the reason why we're staying afloat is because everybody else is worse. I mean, what are you going to invest in? If you're not investing in dollars, you're investing in a ruble.
I mean, land, I guess, gold, silver.
Yeah, but we're talking about countries, and they got to move money around, and they got to do business in money. They don't do business in land and in gold. So it's all about currency. And whose currency going to use? I mean, you're not going to use China's. Everybody knows China's in trouble.
Yep.
You can't trust China.
Their economy's screwed. They're done.
I mean, India wanted to do business and do trade in ruble, but the Indian ruble. But people don't exactly want payment in India ruples.
That's why they're buying gold. These countries.
I want to transition here. There's a new report out, and I don't know how we feel about this. I think it definitely could be a possibility. I wouldn't put it past him. Knowing him, U.S. laughs off reports of Putin eyeing Alaska as Russia's former real estate. What do we think about this? There's been talk for years about this sort of scenario, how Alaska, people could argue that it is Russia's. I mean, obviously we don't think so, but I don't know. Is this a China-Taiwan scenario where Russia, Putin could go in there under Joe Biden's weak leadership? I mean, is this something that could actually be a reality?
I don't think it's a reality.
No.
No.
We bought China. Alaska. We paid for Alaska with money. What was it? A few million dollars. But and I think the Secretary of State or whoever it was, I think his name was Seward. No, we paid for Alaska. We bought it from Russia, so it's ours. Russia has no claim to it. If they want to invade it, I guess they could, but I think they'd be foolish to do so. I don't think Russia can amass that kind of forces on the eastern tip of their country.
But you got to understand, Ukraine, these are Russian-speaking people. They speak the same language. There are hundreds of thousands of Russians there anyway, and very pro-Russian people. Easy thing. Like, good luck crossing the water. Good luck coming to Alaska, where everybody is armed and everybody has guns. Yeah, good luck with that. It would not behoove, at least not in the current situations, even as pathetic as Joe Biden is. I don't think Putin is eyeing Alaska at all.
I agree. He wants Crimea anyway. That's what he's focused on. Most of the people that live there want to be part of Russia anyway. And if
people don't invade America, it's called the Second Amendment. And can you imagine some Chinese soldiers coming in here? Look at people want to shoot. People want to shoot illegals. In their mind, the only thing stopping them is the fact that this administration will give you the death penalty. But I'll tell you, there are probably millions and millions of Americans who just as soon load their AR-15s and shoot these illegals at the border themselves. All right. So if we had an invasion of real enemy forces, Chinese or Russian, I guarantee you, the gloves are off.
Putin even said that I would never invade the United States of America because they have the largest army in the world. We the people. He said that. Yeah. And then Texas AG Ken Paxton just said we will not comply with the Biden administration orders on taking down our barbed wire.
Yeah.
Now we talked. Speaking of the border, it said they say they have the votes to impeach Mayorkas.
It don't matter though.
Yeah, it doesn't.
They're just going to put somebody else in there to keep doing the same damn thing.
Another idiot.
It's more political theater.
Yeah. Yep. And then also, what do you guys think about this guy trying to buy Kerry Lakes out of the race? This GOP head in Arizona.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday. That was pretty interesting. But that stuff happens all the time.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
We don't hear about it.
But it's nice to finally see it exposed.
Bill, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I didn't realize you talked about that yesterday. I saw that. Politics is a dirty sport. There's no question about it.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, that's why our government and world's in the situation it is.
Yeah.
It says right here. We were talking about the economy earlier. There's a new report out today. There's a study, housing unaffordable for record half of renters. Yeah. Researchers say that in 2022, a record half of people in the United States renting a place to live used a massive chunk of their income for rent and utilities. An article published by NPR Thursday cited a recent report from the Joint Center for Housing Studies of Harvard University regarding the desperate situation that is hurting people across the nation. The center's report found that in 2022, as rents spiked during the COVID-19 pandemic, a record half of U.S. renters paid more than 30% of their income for rents and utilities. Nearly half of those people were severely cost burdened, paying more than 50% of their income, the NPR article reported. Wow.
Well, listen, this is the end of the housing market, as we know it now. Because it's too expensive for people to buy homes. Still, though, no matter what, it's expensive. It's cheaper to rent than it is to buy a home, and you've got all of the maintenance, you've got all the taxes, all the homeowners insurance, and all of that. It's too expensive for people, so people are going to be renting, and that's going to put huge downward pressure on the housing market. And we already know the commercial real estate market is on the precipice of an implosion.
You will own nothing and be happy, everyone.
Yeah, and then it's compounded with with this new push for the wealth tax, where everything you have, everything you own, will be taxed. Whether your house, your cars, everything, your silver that you got in there, your grandma's silver that you get, everything will be taxed, and so there'll be no desire. You'll own nothing. You will not want to own anything. Why would I want to own a home if every year I got to pay a tax on it? I'm already paying property tax, I'm paying school tax, I'm already having to pay ridiculous homeowners insurance, and now you're going to tax me just on the value of my home. home? I got a $500,000 home. What are you going to tax me? 1%? Okay. So I got to pay $5,000 on top of all these others. Why would I want to own a home? You're not going to want it. And now it's just not your home. It's everything you own, even your stocks and bonds. Forget that you didn't sell them. Forget that there's no realized capital gains. You're going to get taxed on it. This is, I was on a Mark Levin show a long time ago, and you're talking about these ridiculous tax rates, 90%. How can somebody want these? It's not about whether it's fair to take 90% of the people's wealth. This is the elites up here, ensuring that there are limited seats at the round table. And when you take somebody who's got $1 million business and you confiscate 50, 60, 70%, he's never going to make it to billionaire status. So this is about protecting the elite status, that there's only a handful of them. And they don't want some nouveau riche, bourgeois, Trump-type person who's, God forbid, a Christian conservative becoming a billionaire and getting at the round table. So these ridiculous rates, these wealth taxes are all designed to keep people down, never allow them to elevate themselves up to where they can buy. Because, see, it costs. To get a seat at that round table, it's money. It costs billions of dollars. You're worth $5 billion, $10 billion, you get a seat. So that's the reality. They don't ever want anybody to get to that point where they can get a seat at the round table and wield their power and influence. To be one of those people that goes to Davos and actually says, no, what you're saying is wrong, like the guy from Argentina did.
Argentina president, yep.
Yeah, all these things are not about what's fair. We need to pay for this. We better pay for that. It's all a global movement to suppress everybody, to keep them down, because the elite will never be subjected to the liberty eviscerating misery that the rest of us will be.
It's true. Very true. Bill, you have any thoughts?
Well, from a personal point of view, if I can add something to this, the cost of energy. I've been in my condo 3 years and 2 months. Every month, my electric bill to Duke Energy has been in the $70 range, once in a while up to 80. Sometimes in a real hot summer month, it gets up to 90. Wow. I get my bill on the 24th of the month. In December, my bill was $112. This month, I got it on 24th, just yesterday, $218. Wow. So now my energy bill.
Are you using the heater, Bill?
What?
You using the heater?
Well, I had to turn the heat on a little bit when it got down in the 40s. But
yeah, I was just meaning what raised it up so much is all. Holy cow.
Right now, you see, I got an extra shirt on to stay warm.
It's the cost of energy. That's what raised it.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even use my AC or heater. I'm up at $150 when I was paying $90.
Yeah. So anyway, my utility bill has tripled. Now, it could be because we've had a real cold spell, and my furnace was probably running more than it normally would. But yeah, that's all I have is just 1,100 square feet. Heating, air conditioning, central. But anyway, if everybody is in a situation where their utility bills are also increasing, rent is increasing, pretty soon, Greg, it's not going to be you can't afford a house. You're not going to be able to afford rent either. So where do we go from there? People
are already deciding to either pay their rent or electric bill. I've talked to people. I've heard people even do interviews. They're like, well, I got to figure out which one I'm paying, and I'd rather have a roof over my head and at least sit with the lights out than be homeless. And
the answer to your question, Bill, is there'll be a huge expansion of what we know as Section 8 housing. It'll be more government affordable type housing. It'll be the BlackRocks and the Citigroups and all these massive corporations that are owning all these homes that will rent them to you, and the government will support them and basically finance their need. What it amounts to is, well, yeah, you can't afford rent if you got 3 kids. You can't afford a 3-bedroom apartment. Well, you're just going to get a tiny apartment, and you're going to have 2 bedrooms. So you're it's like they say shrinkflation. You're going to have to get less and settle for less. You're not going to have the space, the square footage. You're going to get these small, tiny little matchboxes that they build. They throw these things up. It will really be kind of a pathetic existence that we have seen. If you go around Europe today, you see the way people live in Europe, and they don't live like we do. And actually, their houses are actually quite cheap throughout Europe. You could buy houses in Italy and in France for very, very cheap relative to our market. But the people that are living there, it's very expensive for them, and they live generations in the same home. So that's what they'll do. they'll just make you a crappy ass apartment that you can't afford as they subsidize it.
My son and daughter-in-law built a home in the Philippines for, I think, $24,000. I think it's around 1,500 square feet, one story. And they're renting it out to her relatives, but they figure that's a fallback for them. If worse comes to worse, they can always move there. The cost of living is so low,
Yeah.
and it's not in Manila. It's about 200 miles northeast or northwest of Manila, so pretty nice area. So, and then they're also thinking about, they're trying to see if they can find a place where they can find some land in a place like Montana, wide open, and build
sure,
a home there.
Yeah. If you guys know anybody, I'm looking too. Hey, Bill, someone messaged me and said, quit your crying, you Florida wussies, because all the people in the north are all freezing their balls off. You said we're having like a big winter front, and someone just wanted to message me and like, hey, man, you Floridians, quit your crying about winter.
I know. I used to be one of them that said that until I got down there and got 88 years old, and now I'm on all these crazy medicines that no matter if it gets down in the 60s, I'm freezing.
Well, you think about also with regard to how people are moving, you've got this mass migration of the worst people from some of these worst countries moving into the United States, like El Salvador and places in Central America, Honduras. Hey, 10 years from now, they're going to be so hurting for money. They may be wanting, rich middle-class Americans to come on there. And it might be better for us to go into El Salvador and buy a big palace, or a place on the water in one of these.
Well, Mark, I've actually looked into South America. They said you can, but it's really tough to buy land. It's weird how it's so restrictive outside of America to buy land, but yet any foreign country can buy land here in our country. It's crazy.
Yeah, but you're talking about El Salvador, where there's 15 million people, and I mean half of them come in the United States. So and half of them are MS-13, like the worst people. They're like emptying out the worst. So what's left is kind of good folks down there, maybe.
For sure.
So it might be better for us to go ahead and move down there. Give them a swap. We'll take our good retirement money and our good standard live down there, good citizenship, and they bring their MS-13 up to the United States. You can have it. I'll tell you what, a trade house.
Costa Rica's land's actually gotten more expensive the last couple of years too, because I was looking there too. That would be awesome to.
Well, Costa Rica has been one of those expat countries for years, since the 70s. People started moving because it's very cheap, so it's getting to be more and more expensive. But now it's more like Panama. Panama's more but it's just not as safe as Costa Rica, not as stable as Costa Rica. But Central American countries they're shipping all their rotten people. They're coming up here. All the people have nothing, leaving them destitute down there with for people. And so as an expat, you can come down and bring your retirement money and be a good citizen. And I'm sure.
Hey, Roy, I was actually looking at Argentina land, because remember the show we talked about when the Argentina president first got elected, and we were talking about getting land. I actually looked into it, and you have to. It's a little tough, but it's possible. I was like, we all should get big enough land, and we all do like a little, group community where we live there and just grow our own stuff, and kind of in Argentina. That'd be sweet.
There's a lot of 1,000-acre farms down there for sale. They're not cheap. It's still going to cost you a couple of $1 million, but there are plenty of 1,000-acre farms in Argentina and Uruguay that are for sale.
Well, it's nice to know that when all hell breaks loose in America, if in fact things get really over the top with government overreach and tyranny, it's good to know that there are countries like Argentina and other places that embrace freedom and embrace, family values and, what our founding fathers wanted with our Constitution and how it was originated. There are countries that still exist, and it's nice to see that.
Yeah. Maybe one day we'll be back there again, to God, country, and family.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, is that fair to say?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's sad. It's sad to think.
I mean, you go to a place that has the right leadership, right? So I think a place like Argentina would be something at the top of your list if all hell breaks loose.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I mean, look, Argentina has a long way to go, but I've been almost.
Yeah, their inflation right now, I think, is at the top. It's the worst.
Yeah, 126% or something, right?
Isn't it over 200%? I don't even.
Was it 200?
I gotta look.
Yeah, which is great for me because I bring American dollars.
Right.
So
Right. It's just, and Merck, that's the thing. It's the people there that are poor. But if you and me went there right now, we could live like kings.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I've been to most all the countries in South America and Central America, and there are some beautiful, beautiful places.
For sure.
And relative to what we make, very, very cheap, extremely cheap.
Colombia's.
Listen to this: inflation rate in 2023 in Argentina, 211%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds like Evita.
Now let me ask you, Mark, do you think the new leader can really bring that back?
I do.
I mean,
well, I think he's definitely got the right attitude. He's an economist. It's going to take a lot of work, and it's not going to happen overnight. They didn't get there overnight, so they're not going to get back overnight. But I mean, it all starts with change. With somebody who inspires. I mean, look what Ronald Reagan did to the United States coming out of the 70s. So it all starts with a great leader who can inspire people and raise them up from the grassroots.
But Reagan did do a big amnesty.
No, I mean, notwithstanding that, but he brought a lot of hope in America in the economy, and it was a radical change from the disastrous Carter administration.
Yeah, which that's like comparing Carter is like comparing to Joe Biden right now, but Carter actually did better than Biden.
Yeah, Carter would be like a pretty good president compared to Biden.
Yeah, Carter almost looks like he's the greatest compared to Biden.
Right. Yeah. Before we take off, though, Bill, you have any thoughts?
No, I'm good. Good conversation tonight. I think we touched on a lot of great topics.
Yeah, I want to bring this up. We were talking about the border earlier, and I just want to mention Denver Health, which is a hospital in Denver, is at a critical point as 8,000 migrants make 20,000 emergency visits. I don't know how we feel about this. I mean, if hospitals are going to continue to welcome this, recipe for disaster.
Yep, they'll get the medical industry is going to fall anyway. Who trusts doctors anymore anyway? Speaking of Denver, it's one of the biggest human trafficking hubs in our country as well.
Not surprising.
Well, this is what I mentioned before.
This is one of many examples. You have hospitals all over the country taking this sort of nonsense. And who's stuck with the bill? The taxpayer.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Greg.
Well, I mean, I said that before. It's putting a huge strain on our healthcare system, and hospitals are collapsing everywhere. And it's not just the hospital. It's not just bad it's bad for everybody. It's bad for us, because then we can't get the healthcare that we need. Or when we go to a hospital and we need it, we got to get in line of 150 people who are illegally. Look, there's everything wrong with this. There's never a shortage of topics to talk about how disastrous this administration is, even if you're only talking about illegal immigration, how they're destroying this country. So you can talk until you're blue in the face. The only way we're going to change it is to change the leadership in this country.
And I hope to God President Trump fires every person in every department and then disbands it and destroys it.
Did we see the report regarding the governors that are standing with Texas? There's almost 30 governors that are standing with Texas.
Oh, really? I thought it was all
my favorite governor, Kristi Nolan, standing with him. She's sending troops.
Yep.
That's making a statement. That's big. You have all this unity. I like seeing that.
I think 23 states are with them.
Yeah, all the Republican governors. Hey, Merck, why is Kristi your favorite, by the way?
Because she's the best looking.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you have any thoughts on this?
No, it's good. We need more of that. Hopefully they can, since they're coming together on the border, maybe they can come together on a convention of the states as well.
Yeah. Brian, what do you think? Bill, what do you think?
As far as the governors, that's great that they're supporting Texas. And I don't think that there's anything's going to come to this about the talk about federalizing the Texas National Guard. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I don't think even Biden's administration wouldn't be stupid enough to do that. If they did, I think that the Texas National Guard would probably reject that.
Now,
and it's a limited thing. It's a Title 10, Title 31, and as I was an active duty guard guy, Title 10, which meant I fell under the federal government. And people just think like this. Look, when you go do their 2 weeks and you come in there and you serve on active duty for a short period of time, you go under a Title 10. It's just this legal jargon. But ultimately, the National Guard, you're not just going to go in there and say, I'm Title 10 and I own the National. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And look, the governments have constitutional rights, or the governors rather have constitutional rights, and they are protected. And as much as Joe Biden wants to say he can do what he wants, he can't. And it will come to a battle. And you know what? Texans, they've been a country in themselves. As the Lone Star State, they were their own republic. So, it wouldn't be the first time they went and fought.
They're definitely trying to start a war. They want a war between the military and National Guard. And is all these other governors sending their National Guard? Like, is DeSantis sending our guard to the border?
Well, he's here. They're all standing by and willing to pledge. I know that Kristi Noem had done it before. She wants, but you know what? They don't just want to do it. It's a process. It's what I said before. Let them languish in the freezing cold or in the devastating heat. Rather than send more people there to process. I think the governor's positions are: look, we're going to send you, but the mission is going to be to return them, to arrest them, to jail them, and return them. If that's not the mission, I'm not going to send my guard down there to help you process people. And I'm hoping that that's Greg Abbott's objective and agenda, is not to use it for processing, but to keep them out. And I think it is. And that will take a coordinated effort between the National Guards from different states to make sure that they've got their roles in place. Not about signing and punching their card and giving them a date, but about locking them up and shipping them back.
Lock them up. Lock them up.
What are we going to do about these caravans? I mean, it's never ending.
Never ending.
It won't ever be any.
It'll end in November when we get a new president.
It'll end in January when he takes office.
Yeah. Well,
it's funny how the timing is always right when we see these massive, massive caravans. It's usually election season.
Well, election, hell, it's been every year since Biden came in office.
I mean, I understand, but to this degree, I mean, it's pretty big out there. I mean, it's probably the biggest we've seen since Biden took office.
Like I said, it's going to accelerate because if they think that Biden's days are numbered, then of course they're going to send more of them. But I mean, remember, as soon as Biden got elected and he rescinded the executive orders, I mean, they just started coming. And, it was like one was like 5,000. It was crazy. Whoa, look at all these people. And there was another and another. Now it's almost the mundane. It's like, here's another damn caravan. Now it's 10,000. It's just disgusting. And I just get to the point where I just got to turn it off. I got to turn it off because it's so frustrating and so angering. But if it taught me anything, it taught me that if you're going to spend a second of your day relying on your government to take care of you, you know what? You're part of the problem. The government's never going to take care of you.
Didn't your boy Reagan even say the 8 most scariest words is "I'm from the government and I'm here to help"?
Yeah, and there's a reason for that, because when the government shows up, you're only going to end up poorer, dumber, and less free. So No thanks.
In handcuffs or something, maybe.
Bill, tell everybody where they can find you, where they can get involved.
Hey, I'm on the Next Gen Live USA 11 o'clock Facebook, and I also have a website.
Perfect. Brian.
Yep, definitely can find me here. I'll be putting more shows out here coming up soon, guys. Apologies for that. Just trying to find great guests. And you definitely find me here, Next Gen, Centralist TV, my YouTube channel, whatever. But look for me here. That'll lead you to everywhere else. I also want to congratulate my cousin Ronnie on signing as the running backs coach with a semi-pro football team over there in Omaha. Congratulations, brother. Go get yourself another championship.
Nice. Greg, go ahead.
You can find me on all social media and here on the network.
Love it. I love it. Well, everybody, another episode of the Next Gen Live in the books. I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. We will see you all very soon. Until next time, I'm Rory Sauter. God bless. Much love. Cheers, everybody.
God bless.
God bless.